Let's talk a minute about communication. Everyone absorbs information through the five senses: taste, touch, smell, hearing, and visual. The brain has a specific area dedicated only to these five senses. They all contribute in some way to communication and how we intake or absorb information. But as noted on the slide, the things we see are the ones we notice most. How does this relate to money? What every parent does at home is a model for their children. And while you may be telling them one thing, save your money, don't spend too much, don't get a credit card, what they will remember is what they see you do or not do. If we use credit cards and don't explain it to them, then they won't know. If you tell them to save, but never go to the bank yourself, that's what they'll remember. When it comes to making decisions about money, we also have to consider the element of emotions, and we all have them. Think of hearing an old familiar song, the familiar face of an old friend, or an event or a tragedy that is still remembered. All are recalled because we have an emotional tie to them. How does that relate to our thoughts about money? I am a strong believer that when it comes to our young people, many of them carry strong emotions about money. These emotions make it difficult for them to make good decisions about money, and we as adults don't understand that. We think they are just making irresponsible decisions. Truth is, they may well be, but there may be other reasons that needs to be considered. I recently asked middle school students to share with me the thoughts and emotions that came to mind when they had to either save their money or could spend it. As you can see by the list, their answers were very revealing. What struck me most was the intensity of their words. And I can still remember one young student who told me that she gets an adrenaline rush when she can spend, but that she gets angry when she has to save. My immediate thought and concern was, how would her parents ever be able to convince her to save any money for her future? And what sort of financial challenges would she bring to a future relationship? I believe that part of the reason for the emotion and the confusion about money for children is the way in which we have taught them about money. There are two primary tools families use to teach kids about money. One is the piggy bank. I was curious to research the history of piggy banks and found this interesting background. Piggy banks originated in the 1500s because only the rich could use the banks. So poor families created a container made of red clay. The name of the red clay was pig, which was later known as piggy bank. Today, piggy banks in one form or another are used in most households throughout the world. Kids from all families are likely to keep them in their bedroom, in a closet, or on a dresser. The remarkable thing to me that even after more than 500 years, we are still not encouraging kids to use the banking system. And I wonder if there is a correlation between that and the fact that our children don't save very much in our country. Allowances are the other usual way we try and teach kids good habits. And as indicated on the slide, allowances are modeled after the first unemployment program that was created in Great Britain after an economic downturn in the mid-1850s. In speaking with many parents, I'm convinced that the typical allowance is not effective in teaching kids about money. Why? Because they are usually for small amounts of money, $2, $3, $5, given over short periods, usually weekly. This doesn't provide children enough resources to make a variety of decisions about, usually forcing the child to save it all or spend it all. Children need to learn how to manage all aspects of money, not just saving. This includes spending within their means, giving to others, putting some money away for emergency, and yes, saving for the distant future. In order to better teach children about how to manage money in a real-world situation, we have created a way to break or separate their money into 4 distinct parts or buckets. First, we teach them to put some money aside for an emergency, so that when an unexpected event happens, they don't have to borrow from others or let another bill go unpaid. First, we teach them to put some money aside for an emergency, so that when an unexpected event happens, they don't have to borrow from others or let another bill go unpaid. We also want children to set aside money for something they want to buy or something they know they will need within the next week, the next month, or the next year. Some sports clothes, a new phone, a trip away. This money is designated to their keep bucket. We know that saving for the distant future takes a tremendous amount of emotional discipline over just saving for something to buy in the next few weeks or months. This is what we call our invest bucket. Any money that goes into this bucket is never, ever, ever to be spent. Remember the graph showing how much just $10 saved over many years adds up to be. This will not happen if children are allowed to spend any of their invest money. There is a donate portion, where a child can learn the importance of giving back to their faith, community, or charity. And the last bucket is their spend money, where they can learn how to live within their means, meaning not spend more than they have. By utilizing the 4 parts or buckets, they will put money away for an emergency, save for short-term wants and needs, invest for the future, give to others, and still be able to spend on the things they need each day or week. This provides them with more of a real-world application of how they will have to manage money. Now, you don't have to create a separate allowance. Every family spends money on and with their children. You can use some of this money, transfer it to them, and make them responsible for managing it. Do you take kids out to dinner through the drive-thru? Do you take kids to movies or rent movies? Do you pay for after-school activities such as sports or student clubs? To determine their kids' pay, roughly calculate how much you spend on each child for things other than basic needs, which are food, shelter, clothing, etc., and pay that amount to them once a month. Then, when the family goes to dinner, they pay for their own, or they pay for their movie. That way, you're using the money that is already being spent, and you don't have to create an additional allowance. But I also recall families like Brittany, a single mom on government assistance, who pays her 8-year-old son $2 a month, which he divides between the 4 buckets. Even with that modest amount, he is learning how to successfully manage his money and hopefully not to have to struggle financially like his mom. I encourage families to pay their children as much as your family's situation allows. But remember, it is not the amount of money our children receive, it's about the habits they develop. Once you adopt this method, whenever they receive money from any source, whether it be allowance, part-time job, birthday, gifts, always allocate the full amount to all 4 buckets. Once you have decided on an amount, unless your pay schedule does not permit, I recommend that you pay them no more than twice a month. I also recommend that you at least open a savings account at a local bank or credit union. Young children of any age with a Social Security number can open a savings account with a parent as guardian. Children 13 years and older can also open a checking account with a parent. While the bank or credit union will not be able to divide the money into the 4 buckets, you can do that at home with your child with 4 envelopes. You can help them decorate with the appropriate colors and names. And for those with computer skills, you can create a simple Excel spreadsheet or use a simple sheet of paper with 4 columns. You will also note from the slide that I have added percentage amounts to the buckets. So when your child receives money, they are to divide it between the 4 buckets using this formula. Keep 20%, invest 20%, donate 10%, and spend 50%. Let's assume that you pay each child $10 per month. Do pay them more if you can. Then 20% of the $10 is $2. Therefore, $2 would be added to the keep bucket, and continuing to follow the formula for the rest of the money. $2 would go to the invest bucket, $1 to donate, and $5 to spend.